Want to hear a joke? What did the baby corn say to the mama corn? Where's popcorn? Well, I thought it was funny. I chose corn because our family loves corn. However, we really don't know much about it except that it can come in a can and it's yellow, and you can also get it on a cob, and it tastes really good with butter. So I wanted to explain to them the difference between dry and wet milling of corn. What uses corn has besides eating, and how corn is a domesticated grass and that's not found in the wild. According to Soitec, the dry milling process is used to produce flour, cornmeal, grits, and grits. The process is called dry milling, but however, it's far from being dry. They separate the corn kernels from the cob, and they soak them in water, where they remove the germ from the kernel. The corn wet milling process, however, it's almost the same, except they try to extract as much from the kernel as they possibly can, and they soak them in deep tanks filled with sulfur dioxide solution. The softened kernel is then processed to remove the germ, which is further processed to remove the high value corn oil. This process is where we get corn syrup, corn starch, and oil. And then eventually what's left is the animal feed. Now that we've identified the difference between dry and wet milling of corn, let's learn what farmers do with the mill. Also, according to Soitec, ethanol is the major component used from corn. It can be refined from both the wet and dry milling process. Ethanol is made when water is added to the corn starch. It forms a mash. Then they add enzymes to the mash, so it becomes a dextrose sugar. The mash is then put in a high temp cooker to be heated up to keep bacteria from growing. And then later it's fermented up to 50 hours. Once it's fermented for that long, they put it in distillery, and that's where it's separated to become ethanol. Another way corn is used, according to commodityhq.com, is for crayons. Crayons are made from dextrin, which comes from cornstarch. Dextrin is what helps us remove the crayons from the mold when they're first made. And also the label that crayons have on them is also made from cornstarch. I guess that's why children find crayons tasty, because they're made from corn. I don't know. Well, maybe it's just the color. Now that we've identified two ways corn is used besides eating, we can find out where corn is from and what corn is. Thinking about it, I should probably start it out what corn is. But most people recognize that the corn stalks when they see them. According to America's farmers, corn is a grass that has been domesticated or man-made into what we know as corn from a grass called tesonate, which means we aren't going to find corn stalks just anywhere randomly in the wild because it's an altered plant. The plant is made of both male and female parts. The male part is the tassel that's very the top, and the female part is the silks when you shuck the corn, those little strings. And then you also have the kernels, which make up the ear of the corn. 90% of corn is called field corn, and it ends up becoming feed. The other 10% is what we call sweet corn, and that's what our popcorn is made of, because we want sweet popcorn. Corn is grown in the United States. Where it's grown, it's called the Corn Belt. The two major states that supply corn to the U.S. are Iowa and Illinois, and they produce more than 1/3 of the U.S.'s commodity of corn. So hopefully you all know a little bit more about corn now, more than just yellow stuff in a can. And I hope I didn't bore you too much with my father of all corny jokes, popcorn. If anything, you should be able to tell the difference between dry and wet milling of corn, understand that corn has different uses besides eating, and learn where corn grows and what corn is.